Welcome, everyone. My name is Andrea Jaeger, and we have a terrific Little Starlight podcast today. I have never been satisfied with just fighting the good fight. We need to actually make a difference. That quote is from the president of IFAW, the International Fund for Animal Welfare. The people who work at IFAW are experts and everyday people working across seas, oceans, land, and in more than 40 countries around the world. They rescue, rehabilitate, and release animals and restore and protect their natural habitats. The problems they are up against are urgent and complicated. To solve them, they match fresh thinking with bold action. They partner with local communities, governments, non-governmental organizations, and businesses. Together, they pioneer new and innovative ways to help all species flourish. And they are powered by human connections. IFAW's Director of Marine Mammal Rescue is Brian Sharp. Brian has rescued animals larger than any scale you may think exist. Those animals include large whales, sea turtles, manatees, and countless dolphins and porpoises. As a permitted level 5 responder, Brian is one of the few rescue professionals authorized by the U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration to disentangle whales within American waters. Wow. It is an honor and very exciting to welcome Brian Sharp. Thank you, Brian, for joining us on Little Starlight.
Thank you for having me here today. I'm happy to be here.
One of my best friends had an encounter with a whale shark once on a dive trip. She said it was one of the most extraordinary experiences she ever had. It was as if the whale knew she was there, how she meant no harm, and it was gentle in its movements, even with its enormous strength, size, and power. When one looks into an eye of an animal of any size, you see into its heart. I felt that, and a person is never the same after. We are better for those experiences. And of course, if anyone tries to be safe, like not, oh, look, there's an alligator, let me go check it out. Like, be aware, be safe, use common sense. When was the first time, like when you're out there with these, I know you just came back from Africa and you were training, teaching individuals on how to help with whales. Are you ever in the water? Like, have you looked in the eye of some of these animals? How has it transformed who you are as a person?
Great question. And the trainings we were doing there were whale disentanglement as well as stranding. And for the whale disentanglement portion, all of that is done from small inflatable boats, because if we're in the water, that's when things are dangerous. That's when we're really, these animals, this is their environment, so we need to be able to respect that and realize what our limitations are. I mean, some of these whales dive for 20 minutes or longer. So all the disentanglements are done from small boats, and that was one of the big things that we were doing and teaching in Kenya as part of that. So we're not in the water during disentanglements, but when we're doing strandings, there is that that opportunity where you do see, you hear the dolphin vocalizing, as we're treating it, as we're giving supportive care, trying to get it to a release site. You see the, animal following you with its eye. And it's always tough because, I mean, these animals are during the rescue, these animals are in incredible stress. And so we do everything we can to alleviate that as much as possible. They don't, it's always hard because I do get that question about, do they know that you're trying to help? And it's hard. I mean, it's hard to be able to assume what another being, whether it's a human or whether it's an animal, is thinking. So we try to keep them as calm as possible throughout every step of it, and that reduces stress, reduces shock. And hopefully provides the best outcome for them. So, it's incredible. It is, it's tough. It's tough when you see that kind of stress in an animal. You really want to remove it as much as you can.
Yeah, absolutely. And seeing them peaceful and keeping them, like keeping your distance from them as well in the ocean. And this goes to Adriana, and I'm going to ask you another question after this, Brian, that pertains to it. So Adriana at one point wanted to, I'm more of a land person. I've really done some studying with dolphins and I care about the marine life and I'm involved in that. But I'm better equipped, maybe because I was really good in professional tennis, that I'm just a land person on my feet, like the ground. So this one particular time, it was after we already had gone to, and I played in the Wimbledon Legends. We were out and in Florida in the waters, and she goes, well, maybe it'd be good for you for like balance or just enjoyment. You love the animals out here. Let's try to go like take out a paddleboard. And I'm like, oh, great. So I got this huge paddleboard with a turtle on it and everything. And we went out and she was like smooth as silk going on the waters, so graceful. Well, because we had to do this kind of after work. And so it's kind of getting to be sunset and I see a shark. Okay. So I'm on my paddleboard and I'm like, okay, I saw Jaws way too young. I love the animals and I respect them, but I'm like, I'm getting out of here. And so it wasn't a graceful dive off my paddleboard. And so I get back. Adriana just stayed out there and she was totally fine. There was like rays, like soaring over, and she's just like just doing this Zen thing. And when she got off the sand, she goes, you made more commotion getting out of the water with the shark looking at you than I did on my paddleboard. So, have you ever gone in the ocean recreationally and had just one of those experiences where you see the dolphin and you're very close, but it's not work related?
Ooh, great question. Not really. No, I haven't really had that opportunity. I guess usually when I'm out there, it's work related. It's I mean, I guess when before I worked up here, I worked down in Florida for Florida Fish and Wildlife, so we would occasionally see manatees, and you just kind of stand back and you just watch and appreciate the beauty and the size and the power of those animals, but not with dolphins. Funny enough, it's always work related.
My thing with manatees, if anyone sees isn't it against the law to touch them? Like you cannot touch a manatee.
And right, and with any marine, and that's a great point to bring up, is that with any marine mammal, you do want to give them space. We don't want to change their behavior. It's called harassment. We don't want to change their behavior at all. We see that, mentioned about some of the tough things about the job. We have seal populations that have recovered on Cape Cod. And so we have seals that haul out on the beach. And so that's a lot of what our biologists are dealing with, is trying to manage people and animals, and and remembering and reminding people how to live with wildlife. We don't want to approach too close, because then the seal pup or the seal juvenile will go back in the water, and we don't want to stress those animals out with that. So yeah, that's a very good point to bring up.
I was just going to say that it makes complete sense that you have so much knowledge and information, and you're so educated about these animals that you actually are not really doing it recreationally, because you know what all it entails. And the rest of us, like myself, who is fascinating by the world and what's going on in the water, and we have so little knowledge, because you said it is challenging to spread the information and educate people on what's going on. And I just want to be close to them. It's just, they come close, I'm very respectful, but if they get close, I'm just like, hello, and they look, and I've heard the whales under the water, and it left such an incredible impact on me. I'm like, wow, that's when you feel like you really want to make a difference for them, because they rely on us. It's us who's supposed to step up and take care of them, and vice versa, because they're taking care of us.
Yeah, we are the stewards, and so we need to remind ourselves of that, and as part of our work, to try to look at the human impacts on these animals, entanglement, vessel strikes, and figure out ways to stop them. And for people to care, we need them to understand, and that's exactly it, is to form that bond, and understand that we are stewards.
Yeah.
There was I think in Hawaii, they seem to have a huge respect for the marine life. I was invited by Dr. Wayne Dyer at to attend a conference and speak at one of his conferences, and it was in Hawaii, and Adrian and I went first thing, she just went in the water. Like, I'm preparing for what I'm going to speak and what I'm going to do. She's in the water. I'm like, okay, I'll try it. I wasn't sure how to do any of the things to put on, even the flippers, but I went out and immediately there were sea turtles and they didn't mind human interaction. And I guess what we also, we see it more frequently when we're driving a vehicle. You see the signs, you see traffic signs, wildlife ahead, be aware, wildlife. But in the ocean, there isn't that. And what we can do the best is to be respectful of them and try to find out things and just pay attention. This one time, this is just a little story because it does come with an interesting question that will be based intellectually for you. So just hold on for a moment while I share this. So there's sea turtles where I was at in this area in Santa Rosa Beach, Florida. And so I normally don't go out in the water and like want to take a picture. I just like look, and you're fascinated, take a picture from the beach and get so excited, right? And share it with the kids and everyone. But this one particular time, someone gave me for my birthday an underwater camera. And I thought, oh, cool. Still, I'm not going out in the water. And so my friend usually goes and does that. And she didn't want to that day. And I thought, this will be really cool. I'll get the picture, no problem. And so I went, and I was up to probably my hip in water. And so then I saw something kind of going around. For people who are watching this video in your car, you won't be able to tell, but I saw a shadow kind of go around me. And I'm like, oh, maybe I'm getting closer to the turtle. But then it didn't really pop its head up at all. And so I'm kind of looking around. I'm still in hip deep water. And all of a sudden I see that was circled around me and went to the front towards the sand. And then between me and the beach, there was something flipping this tail in the air. And first I thought it was a stingray, because sometimes they jump in the waters. And so there was 3 people on the beach, a couple that I didn't know. And I said, they go, oh, that's a stingray. And they were shouting. And I said, I don't think so. It looks like a shark. And so I'm like, how do these people not know it's a shark? So as soon as I said that shark made a beeline for me, like straight at me. And it was kind of like agitated at first when it started swimming at me. And I actually thought, okay, this is it, but I might as well get the picture, right? Because I got this underwater camera. They'll find the camera and they'll go, wow, at least Andrea got a great photo. And I started clicking the camera, and at the last second, it veered, like literally right at me, veered to the side, veered away and went away. And I could because I couldn't swim to the ocean. I couldn't run to the ocean, nothing. It wasn't even swimming because I was in hip water, because it was right in front of me towards the sand. So I got to the beach, and the couple who was there, he said, I'm going to buy a lottery ticket. I've never seen anything like that in my life. It's a miracle. It just avoided you. So my question for you is, I kind of went with, well, maybe I've always loved animals. I love protecting animals. Maybe it knew that, right? But my other thing was, do you think the electronics part did that? Because they pick up sounds, and they pick up there's some animals now, it's been in the news a lot about marine life, and there's some that are having problems in the Keys. And there's, I don't know if you're familiar with the story, and a lot of fish and a lot of marine life, they're circling and then dying. And is that a sonar thing that's happening, that they're picking up, or it's not a virus, they've tested it? So do they pick up on that kind of electronics things that are happening?
Very much so, and it depends on the type of marine mammal, and what how they've evolved to live in their environment. Especially sharks, they have very well documented systems where they're able to pick up electrical impulses, not just from electronics, but just from our bodies themselves. So that's very well documented. Also, just visual acuity for things such as any kind of glints of, that might be a small fish, which might be a prey, or the next meal, all the way to, dolphins that, their echolocation, just being able to use that sound can really paint a picture for them, regardless of how murky the waters may be, or clear the waters and things like that. So yeah, some of these adaptations that marine animals have developed to be able to be so efficient in this environment. So yeah, that's likely what you said. So you probably just a shark that was picking up the electrical impulses or electrical signature from you or the camera or something like that, and decided that it had seen enough, I guess.
That's something that actually is, yeah, bothers him and is harmful. Help! They probably hasn't invited.
I was really grateful for that
Just
birthday
need to
present
check it
that
out a
year.
little bit more.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Now it seems like, and I've been following news for some time, just all kinds of sections, and it appears to me in the last year that there's a lot more coverage of marine life in distress. Is that something that IFAW, are you working on that? Is that just people are becoming more aware? And do you feel like that has been happening? Because there's stories out there that seem to be a lot more pronounced than in previous decades and years even.
I think definitely people are paying more attention and realizing, as people use the oceans more for recreation, for commerce, for shipping of goods, for all the different ways that we use the oceans for fishing, for energy production, things like that. So I think that is probably part of the reason why you're hearing more of what is going on in the oceans.
Brian, so if a person was like, "Oh my goodness, they saw something, they connected with the animals." So, what are some of the ways they can educate themselves and get involved, so more of us get involved in protecting these animals and wildlife and nature in general?
Great question. And for those that live near the coast, the entire coastline of the United States is broken up geographically. The federal government is mandated by Congress to collect information on marine mammals because they are so important. They don't have the resources to do that throughout the entire U.S. coastline. And so the U.S. government relies on agencies such as IFAW, universities, state agencies throughout the entire U.S. coastline. So if you live on the coast, we always encourage people to do a search engine search of what stranding agencies are in your area. So that way, when you're out on the beach, if you see something, you see an animal that's in distress or an animal that you think might be in distress, or you see a dead animal, to call and report it. And so that way we can get someone out there. If it's a live animal, we want to make sure that the best care is being provided to keep the animal safe and have the best outcomes, but also keep humans safe. And then for dead animals, like I mentioned earlier, it's so incredibly important for us to be able to do those investigations and try to determine causes of death. So that way that can be prevented in the future, so we can monitor any potential human impacts.
Absolutely. I was wondering about that. I mean, we have not that much information available, so we really have to, like you just said, we need people like you to inform us how to be prepared in case that happens. Like we find a seal on the beach that's washed out, and we shouldn't really be touching the animal, and let the professionals make sure that they know what they're doing and have the phone number and know who to call and do that. So thank you for sharing.
And if people don't have that resource, we just say, a lot of times people will call their local police departments, and we have those relationships with all of the police and fire departments in the area. And so as soon as they get that call, they pass that information along to us.
Yeah, we have a pretty good system here in Santa Rosa Beach, and about 7 years ago, they started very small. It was just to protect the turtles and to try to get the public to fill in the holes. I mean, I still, it confuses me why people go to the beach and dig holes. I mean, it's like, I don't know why, but they do. But to fill them up when you leave, and I've seen the growth in the last 8 years. I've volunteered with them for several years before I was traveling predominantly, and they did really good work. And now, even just last week, there's we had 4 and 5-year-olds out there just so excited to pick up the garbage and so excited to clean the beach and so excited for the turtles to have their nesting and their hatching periods. And so it does come about to be education. It becomes about, you know, who you can share some information with, and that's super important. And the other thing about your work, I mean, you're the director of the Marine Life Department, but Karen Vasquez, who often joins us on our podcast, she's a childhood cancer survivor and was so excited for this podcast. She had something else that came up in her schedule that she couldn't be involved, but it's everybody can do something and be aware of something and make a difference. But you also, your company has an establishment that's been around for 50 years. Like, this isn't just something that was just started and feel good feeling and a few friends got together. This is really, countries are involved and the governments of those countries come to you, and to have you on, this is like, we've been waiting months. This is a huge opportunity, because so often in your field, you don't know if it's going to be at midnight, that you're going to be on a plane somewhere. You don't know where your next destination will be because of the fluctuation of some of the things occurring. So this is definitely very important sharing happening. And I want to thank you for your terrific insights. And I'm going to ask a couple of questions to expand on that. In 1984, I was injured on the pro tennis circuit while having a phenomenal career on tennis courts. And then one of the first places I visited when I was injured that year was a dolphin research center. I wanted to know what I could do to help the fascinating sea mammals. Back then, the world didn't have as much plastic or garbage. For over a decade now, every time I run on the beach, I take a bag to pick up garbage. Last week, I had 3 bags of garbage full. And I'm not marathon running here. This is like 30 to 45 minutes, and that's 3 bags of garbage I'm picking up. And then there's holes dug by vacationers, and they leave them. They're massive holes. And sea turtle nests can get disturbed by human-made holes, and sea turtles can become trapped in those holes, since on land stepping backwards is not a turtle's forte. And it's been reported that over 1 million marine animals, including dolphins, turtles, mammals, fish, sharks, and birds, are killed each year due to plastic debris in the ocean, and that there are 100 million tons of plastic in oceans around the world. What has happened to us as a society to cause this? And can it be stopped? Can you please talk about the importance of keeping oceans and beaches clean?
Absolutely. And just as you said, exactly what you said, where, taking it, us being the front line of not only addressing what plastics are out there through, when you're on a beach, when you have that opportunity to help remove it. And also realize that even if you aren't on a beach, anytime that you find it, plastic in the environment, it's like all water leads to the ocean at some point. All plastic eventually ends up in the ocean. So again, even if your listeners aren't near a beach or have that opportunity, realize that you are doing something for animals, either terrestrial, avian, or marine. And address with them that way. But then also on the front end is making sure those plastics aren't getting into the environment in the first place. And so, we always want to stress with people to do everything they can as far as limiting the plastic use, reuse. I mean, we hear it, and just make sure that we want to live it every day. And it affects animals on every level, whether it be from a sea turtle all the way up to, animals becoming entangled with whales. It tends to be fishing gear that the animals are entangled with, still, a plastic that's in the ocean. But trying to be able to figure out ways to prevent that in the first place. Preventing these entanglements is the real way that we will be able to prevent this pain and suffering and detriment to populations and species.
Absolutely. Part of your esteemed education is you went through Incident Command System and Operations Section Chief training with the FEMA Emergency Management Institute. What was that like?
It was really incredible, because we were in a room, or through that training, we were there basically with teams that deal with wildland fires, and it was really incredible to kind of see it through their eyes. ICS really started back in the 70s. Wildland fire teams were getting overwhelmed, and they needed a better way to be able to work with multiple agencies. And they developed this system, and then it's amazing to see how that system that was developed for wildland fires has application across so many different disciplines, including marine mammal rescue. We use it every day that we have a response, whether it's mass stranding of 6 dolphins. A great sad example is we had team down in Virginia Beach just last week. There was a female right whale that was struck by a vessel off of Virginia Beach. And so incident command system, ICS, was employed with that. There were responders and veterinarians, biologists from Maine to Florida that convened about 24 individuals to be able to do that necropsy, because that information is so important. That's the information that determines the cause of death, and that then the industry, the government, conservation organizations can use that information to be able to help prevent animals from getting hurt. So ICS is absolutely critical in every part of our operations.
That's real important sharing there too as well. Now, what most people don't often think about is we are made of approximately up to 70% water, sometimes even 75% water, and that the ocean helps provide oxygen we breathe, and helps with the world's water supply. And then when the oceans are polluted and harmed, an oxygen depleted ocean can have dire impact. And this includes basic sensory functions on marine life, besides some of the things that you mentioned with people. For people who may think, well, I don't captain a boat, I never throw garbage on the beach or in the ocean. In fact, I don't even live near an ocean, nor am I a CEO or board member of a major company. It's many people think if they're not involved, it's not their problem or it doesn't affect them. But yet everyone's affected if the oxygen is damaged in ocean waters, and everyone is affected by a suffering ecosystem. So how do you explain to children, like the future caretakers of the planet? I mean, obviously it's important for every company and CEO and board member and employee to know, what am I doing? Is it helping the ecosystem? Is it hurting it? But with kids often can teach the adults. I mean, sometimes we think the adults are teaching the children, but sometimes kids can actually help on that. And so how do you help that to create lifelong fans of oceans, nature, animals, environment, and the important work of IFAW?
I think you said it perfectly, is empowering people and making them realize that they do have the power to make change. And whether that's big change, such as lobbying and letting people know what their views are, no matter what your age is. I have a 4.5-year-old who is very happy to let us know what her opinions and views are. But then as you get older, making sure that our government, our representatives know what we find important, but also on an individual level, making sure that people realize that the choices they make that do have an impact. And that choice, again, all water leads to the ocean at some point, making sure that people realize that. So, oil from an oil change, you might not think that it would end up in the ocean. It eventually will. And so, keeping that in mind and realizing the interconnectivity that we all have.
At IFAW, you oversee international response training and lead rescue missions, harnessing the power of more than 200 volunteers. At Little Star Foundation, the largest program Adriana Solarova, who's also hosting with me today, and I have done, is 350 participants. These are kids at once, with far less volunteers and ambassadors helping. Adriana is excited to share her questions now. As a child, Adriana grew up on the tennis courts, training day and night. After playing Division I college tennis and pro tennis events and graduating with a double major, Adriana has been in the service area, helping for nearly a decade children with life-threatening diseases and life-altering conditions. She is also a big fan of oceans and marine life. Here's Adriana.
Hi, Brian, once again. Thank you for being with us. It's wonderful to be on the podcast with you.
Yeah, happy to be.
You're truly inspiring. Okay, I'll get to it. So what age, wonderful. At what age did you know you wanted to become a marine mammal rescuer, or wanted to go into this field of career? And then is there a background story behind this career path you took?
It was a very circuitous route. I mean, it was not anything that was direct where I can point to like one moment in time. It was a lot of things over time. When I was in college, I was an animal science major, so I dealt with terrestrial animals, livestock, basically, and then had always lived, I grew up in Delaware, always lived near the ocean. Some of my earliest memories, going out with my parents on it. They had a small boat and going out on that. So that was always there. And then, just the opportunities came up to be able to volunteer as an intern, and then as that kind of progressed, just make it into a career. And now years later, it's kind of interesting to look back to see where it grew from.
Yes, absolutely. So it's all started sort of with just fascination with the ocean and the animals, okay, at a young age. And then it all started after your college and you volunteered and fell in love. Wonderful. In one of your live interviews, you're describing a very important vehicle that has the necessary equipment to help rescue and treat dolphins. Why is this vehicle imperative, and how many dolphins have you helped so far because of the special vehicle or vehicles?
That's Moby. Our Mobile Dolphin Rescue Clinic is its full and technical name. And it was something that we had been designing for years. It took about 2 years of design, 1 year of physically building it. A company in Wisconsin actually built it for us. And since we put it in there, we've had, probably over 100 dolphins that have been, and it's only been put in service late 2020. It was put in service. So well over 100 animals have benefited from that. But it is a dolphin hospital on wheels. It is the only vehicle of its kind in the world. It's basically, if you took several FedEx trucks, put them together with all the capabilities of an ambulance, and then all of the emergency response gear that we need. So it's a large vehicle. All the staff have to be trained to be able to operate it. But we designed it so that in addition to the veterinary lab that's at the front, we can carry up to 9 animals. And we thought, okay, this is, we're preparing for the worst case scenario. Within 2 months of that vehicle of us receiving Moby and putting it online, we had a mass stranding of 9 dolphins. And without that vehicle, all of those animals would not have been able to be rescued and released. So we were excited to be able to do that. It's, again, the only vehicle of its kind in the world. It was designed from the ground up, and really was 20 years of innovation in the works. When we started this out, when we started all of this, we were transporting dolphins in the back of pickup trucks, in the back of open bed trailers, because that was all we had. The stranding response on Cape Cod that started before I even moved here was very grassroots driven. It was volunteers who, local people that saw needs in the environment, in their community, and said, we can do better. We can figure out a way. These animals are stranded. They need help. What can we do? And then it grew from there. And that's what grew into our stranding network. And, you mentioned earlier, we have over 200 volunteers that they're still our eyes and ears. When we get a phone call on our hotline, they're the first ones on scene. So they're the ones there making sure that animals are safe and that people are safe until the rest of the staff and equipment can arrive on scene. And they're with us through every part of the way.
That's amazing. That's truly incredible. And that's some time to develop such a vehicle, because I saw it. I'm like, wow, it must have taken, that it makes sense that it must have taken such a long time to develop such a vehicle that can support these animals and help to rescue them. Truly amazing. So you mentioned you have 200 volunteers, and I'm curious. So if somebody wanted to volunteer, how does it work?
So we do focus on volunteers who live here in this area, because we need to be able to call on them, because they are our first responders. They are the ones who live in the communities. We get a phone call, they're on scene sometimes in less than about 5 minutes, depending on where they live and where the animals are stranded. Able to provide supportive care for the animals, making sure that scavengers and predators, such as blackback gulls, coyotes, are away from the stranded dolphins, because the dolphins, when they're stranded, they have no defense mechanism really. Very strong tail, but that doesn't help with some of these land-based scavengers and predators. So they're really providing supportive care. They're getting a sheet over the animal to protect it from the sun. Especially in our summertime, a dolphin's skin can blister in as little as 15 minutes. And so we want to prevent that from happening, keeping these animals cool until we can arrive, until our veterinarians and our biologists can start the process of a health assessment and determining if these animals can be released.
That's amazing. So let's say I wanted to volunteer, I would have to be actually knowledgeable in everything. It wouldn't be just that I can go to volunteer at the dog shelter.
Yeah, no, there's a whole process. So like I said, we focus on people who live in the area, especially since most of our strandings occur in the wintertime. They can happen at any time of the year, but from about December through April is really when we see the most strandings. And so when people live in the area, there's a process where they take several trainings. And so they have to complete all of those trainings. Some are virtual, some are in person. So that way they can have the skills to keep themselves safe, keep the animals safe, and that we can do the most good for the animals.
Amazing. Thank you. What are some of the most challenging aspects of your profession? And then what are some of the most rewarding ones?
Some of the most challenging. One of the biggest challenges is getting information out to people. So in venues just such as this, where we're reaching out, a lot of times people don't know that there's somebody to call. I think we all have that inherent desire to help. You see an animal in distress, people want to help. In many cases, they don't know what to do. They don't know that there are professionals that can be called to help. And so people tend to take things into their own hands, which is incredibly dangerous for the animals, can be incredibly dangerous for them. So that's one of the most challenging things. And then also, as part of our longer range work, not only providing aid to individual animals, but using this as an opportunity to monitor the environment through these animals, because these animals are so special. They are key parts of the ocean ecosystem, and using that so that we can see some of these longer term changes. Some of the most rewarding is when the team's able to, everything falls into place and the response falls into place. They're able to provide supportive care. The animals are in good enough shape that they can be treated and released, and releasing those animals. And and we actually will put temporary satellite tags on select animals so that we can track them afterwards, because this whole process is a big circle. As we release one animal, we use the information from that to affect our next response, because we want to be able to be as efficient as possible and provide the best care possible. And so we want each response and each rescue to inform the next one.
It's amazing that they get to be rescued and then treated and released. That really is very special. So most of them, do they get released? Do you release all of them into the wild?
As many as we can. So we typically see about 70 stranded dolphins or porpoise per year, live dolphins and porpoise per year. That makes us actually the place in the world with the most frequent dolphin cetacean strandings of any location in the world. So that allows us to be able to learn, because it's happening so frequently here. And that's partly due to the geography of Cape Cod, where a sandy hook that sticks out in the ocean. Exactly. The tides, the currents, gently sloping beaches. So, we use all that to kind of feed back in and to be able to, make each response that much more efficient.
We want to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to learn as much about your organization as possible. Is there anything else that we didn't cover that you would like to share?
No, I think, like you said, you covered a lot of it. I mean, just that making sure that people realize they do have a voice, making sure people realize that that they do have an impact no matter where they live. You know, whether you're hundreds of miles from the ocean, whether you live right on the coastline, you know, your actions do have an impact and you can make change. So that's the most important part. And then just reminding people to be safe from their perspective, but also from an animal perspective. And, you know, and just call, you know, when you see something on the beach, you know, just let your local teams know. You know, we appreciate that, and you know, helps keep the animals safe, help keeps people safe, which is what we're looking for in the end.
Okay, and then there's going to be one question I know someone's going to find me and say, why didn't you ask him about this? So I'm going to ask
Oh no.
you.
Okay.
Animal parks. Dolphin
I was
shows,
about to
whale
ask
shows.
the same.
What are your thoughts on that? We at Little Star Foundation, we've been around 39 years. I will say we have taken kids to swim with dolphins in the past. We haven't in the last 5 years. But before, we always were excited because we felt like it was contributing to the educational portion of those establishments, and for kids to learn about those animals that they may never have a chance to. And gosh, they loved it. But things have shifted a little bit in that consciousness. And so I would like to ask the expert, what would you tell a family as that? Because we haven't done that as of late, and we've had some requests. And so I'd like to have an official answer, what you think we should share.
Official answer. You know, that is, it really, like you said, feelings and people's interactions with wildlife have changed. And so, you know, we have progressed in our thinking on a lot of different levels. You know, one thing, you know, I can share, that's actually how I started off my career. When I first started off the career, I worked at SeaWorld of Florida. And, you know, I joined that team. I was interested in the marine mammal rescue side of it, and it was an excellent place for me to get experience. I realized that my interest that I needed and wanted to work with animals in the wild populations and out in their environment, not in contained settings. And so that was, you know, very early on, I realized that, and then kind of shifted away. And, you know, that's what took me on the path, you know, again, working for Florida Fish and Wildlife with manatees, and then eventually moving up here to Cape Cod to be able to do that. But that's a great question, and one that individuals have to ask themselves, and realizing, you know, because even if you look at different facilities, they're not all created equal. You know, doing your research, you know, knowing what's going on, but it's very difficult to keep animals in those kinds of settings. So, you know, asking people to really do a good think of it before they take any actions.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing, and thank you to you and everyone. You know, stay safe. Blessings and prayers to you and everyone at so I say IFAW and you say
IFAW or IFAW,
okay,
either works.
okay. IFAW for your important callings, and from myself, Andrea Jaeger, Adriana Solarova, and everyone at Little Star Light and Little Star Foundation. Thank you so much, and we're cheering you on. We're going to send get as many people involved to know about what the great work you do, and everyone there, and just, you know, for continued blessings to the animals and the oceans out there and the ecosystem, because we need it too, but they need it. And so let's all do it together. Hopefully this is the best thing they can do. So thank you again. I really appreciate it.